it's simple, such a sad song. The one that we rely on to get us.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Sarah, and I am happy to be with you here on this Monday, the first day of fall. Hopefully you're having some lovely fall weather wherever in the world you are, unless, of course, you're in the southern hemisphere, and then hopefully you're having some lovely spring weather. Is it also the first day of spring where you are? Do the dates coincide? I would imagine they do, but what do I know? At any rate, I should look that up. But at any rate, I am here to talk about some of the news stories that are trending on social media currently. And the first story is one of inspiration. It is one of backlash. It's one that has a lot of differing opinions going on around it. And that is the story of Greta Thunberg, who has been showing up on my news feeds all over the place. She is, she's the subject of both admiration and trolling and backlash and just so many different emotions. If you aren't familiar with who she is a now 16-year-old from Sweden. She has been protesting against climate change. Well, she has been protesting about climate change, I should say. And there are two pictures that really show how far she has come in this journey. The first is from August 28th of last year. It is a picture of her sitting alone outside of Swedish Parliament on the first day that she left school to raise awareness for climate change. She has a sign that says "School Strike for Climate Change." And the other picture is from this past Friday of a very large protest in San Francisco inspired by Greta. And there were protests all over the place, all over the world, I think. So her first Friday, as I said, was August 28th of last year. She has the sign that said "School Strike for Climate Change." She's often sitting alone. There is one picture of two other friends sitting with her, but it was often just her. On Friday, though, she joined protesters that she'd inspired in New York City. She was in New York to to speak at the UN. She spoke on Saturday at the United Nations Youth Climate Summit, in New York City, and then at the UN Climate Action Summit today. And she is very inspiring. She's 16 years old now. She's been doing this for 15 months. She actually says, "I would never have predicted or believed that this was going to happen someday, and so fast, only in 15 months. I can't wait to see the official numbers come in. It will be magnificent." She's feisty. She's just so fierce. I mean, whenever I see a picture of her, she looks so impassioned, so enraged, so focused. She's 16. She looks younger. She could easily pass for 12 or 13. She probably doesn't like to hear that. Wears her hair in braids or plaits, as they're often referred to, either one or two. And she's quoted as saying, "We have only been born into this world. We are going to have to live with this crisis our whole lives. So will our children and grandchildren and coming generations. We are not going to accept this. We are striking because we want a future, and we are going to carry on." So she is talking about the fate of the planet. She is trying to get people to pay attention to what is going on. And she's getting a lot of support. A lot of people are so impressed and inspired by her. She's also getting a lot of backlash, as I said. She seems to be triggering for certain people, especially men. She's quoted as saying, "I think if enough people get together and stand up for this, then that can have a huge difference. To put pressure on the people in power, to actually hold them accountable, and to say you need to do something now." So why is she receiving all of this backlash? Part of it, of course, is her age. You know, people see her, they see someone who looks younger, and she's so fierce. She's so fierce, and she is so direct. She has no qualms about just stating what she thinks and why she thinks it, and how she sees older generations as failing her generation, that they have now left this. She says a lot, I am not here to be your hope. You should have given me that hope to grow up with. And she's very accusatory. You know, she can come across as very harsh, and some people just don't like that, especially from someone who is so much younger than they are. Other people have a hard time with climate change. There are deniers. There are people who don't think it's as bad as it is. They think it's made up. They think people are making too big of a deal of it. But regardless of what you think, this is a young woman who is telling you how you should live in order to protect the planet, and people don't like that. She is dedicated, she is passionate, and she is being trolled, of course. So she recently, she was in New York over the weekend. She spoke again today. And when she got to New York on Friday, she texted, let me finally here. Thank you to everyone who came to see me off in Plymouth and everyone who welcomed me in New York. Now I'm going to rest a few days, and on Friday I'm going to participate in the strike outside the UN. She then gave a press conference in English, which is her second language, and I don't speak a second language, so I'm always impressed by people who A, do speak more than one language, and B, can do so under pressure and in situations where she's amazing to me. Of course, the fact that she sailed to New York met with backlash. People were commenting about things like, well, now the three crew members who have to fly out to take the yacht home, what's that going to do for the climate, et cetera, et cetera. In response, Greta retweeted someone else's friendly reminder that you don't need to spend 2 weeks on a boat to do your part to avert our climate emergency. You just need to do everything you can with everyone you can to change everything you can. She did this as a protest. It was an active protest. It was meant to get people's attention. It was meant to draw attention to the issues that she is speaking about, that she is protesting, that she is so passionate about. And you know, people don't always like change, so there's that. They don't always appreciate when they're being told what to do, especially on something that they may not agree with. But the backlash that's coming, especially from men, is just crazy. It's wow. I mean, I get trolls. I understand, and I don't understand trolls. I kind of get them. You know, it's easy to say mean things from behind your keyboard. It's easy to attack people that you don't know and who you don't agree with. But the people are so scared of her, and they are ridiculing her because they are scared. They seem to be terrified of this young woman, both as an individual and and for what she stands for, which is youth, determination, and change. I think you could do an entire, and probably people will, entire psychological papers on why people are so upset with this young woman for standing up for what she believes in. Part of it is that she is young, and it's easy to attack young people because we don't think that they have as much life experience, or they don't know as much. And that is really, I don't think, the case here, because she seems to have definitely, I mean, she is passionate enough about this. She has done her research. She has done everything she can. And she seems to be triggering again because of what she represents. In an age when democracy, this is a quote from the Irish Times, in an age when democracy is under assault, she hints at the emergency of a new kind of power, a convergence of youth, popular protest, and irrefutable science. And for her loudest detractors, she also represents something else, the sight of their impending obsolescence hurtling towards them. That's quite a damning phrase, you have to admit. I'm impressed with her. You don't have to agree with everything she stands for to be impressed with her. I don't think she is one in a long line of young people, young women who have worked to change the world. I keep seeing memes popping up about, she's not the first. They mentioned people from Joan of Arc to Malala. Oh, I just blanked on her last name. I apologize. So many young women who have changed the world, and so many who are still working to change the world. I say thank you. And we're going to go ahead and take our first break of the podcast. When we come back, we will be switching gears and talking about some other aspects, some other things that are trending on social media. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Welcome back to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast. Before the break, we were speaking about Greta Thunberg, her passion, her fierceness, her detractors. And as I mentioned at the end of the last episode, we need to talk about the so-called storming of Area 51, which was scheduled to happen last Friday, the 20th? And, what actually happened? I know I saw one video on social media where a reporter was speaking and somebody ran directly behind him, doing a specific kind of run. I cannot remember what it was, but apparently it was very appropriate for the situation. But I like this first line in an article I read. This is from Vice.com, about what really happened at Storm Area 51. And for starters, no one was vaporized. Or if they were, the CIA did a really good job of covering it up. So, that gets your attention. It was, of course, hard to know what exactly was going to happen. It kind of started as a joke a few months ago, and then people were actually making plans to do so, and then they tried to do a festival, and there was just all kinds of things that happened. It was obvious that most of the 2 million people who said they'd be showing up to the raid were just kidding. But beyond that, according to this article, nothing was clear, and I agree. All the available information suggested it was probably going to be a nightmare. The BBC reported that as many as 50,000 people were expected to turn up. An Air Force spokesperson hinted that they would definitely kill you if you attempted to enter the base. The town of Rachel, Nevada, which was going to be home to a tie-in event called Alien Stock, posted a message on their website warning that there wouldn't be sufficient food or water or lodging available and that they expect riots. The Federal Aviation Administration announced that the airspace around Area 51 would be closed off. The local sheriff said they would be bringing in hundreds of additional paramedics and police from across Nevada. There were warnings that there would be no phone signal and that the 2-lane highway that serves the area would be clogged and that the nearest gas station, almost 50 miles away, would probably run out of gas. The phrase Fire Festival, FYRE 2.0 was thrown around a lot. So what did happen? Were there aliens? Was there storming? Was there clogging of traffic? What happened? All of those predictions did not stop brands from trying to get in on the act. Everyone from Funyuns to Durex condoms to Kool-Aid to a Jonas brother sucking every last drop of joy out of the jokes surrounding the event through Area 51 themed marketing. Arby's and Bud Light announced that they would be at the area giving out limited edition products. So this reporter kept that in mind and made sure that she took enough water and food to survive for a week and pepper spray and a knife in case everything went Mad Max. She was imagining herself spending hours and hours in bumper-to-bumper traffic, ducking the bullets from police as they tried to defend a depleted gas station from looters. I pictured myself turning up my car radio to drown out the screams of PR people from Arby's and Budweiser as they were murdered by mobs for their limited edition Area 51-themed food and drinks. I saw myself looking on in horror as teen after teen got vaporized by the military for stepping over the boundary of Area 51 for the sake of a TikTok video. She is definitely dramatic, and I like the dramatic nature of her article. When I arrived in Rachel, pretty much everyone I encountered was covering the event. I was approached by a man from a local news channel who asked if he could interview me. I declined, telling him that I was also a journalist. Not long after, I asked a guy if I could interview him, and he told me he was there writing an article. He said almost everyone he'd tried to interview was there covering it too. There were also a lot of YouTubers filming stuff. From what I overheard, they seemed to speak only in references to the Storm Area 51 meme, repeating the same few phrases about clapping alien cheeks and seeing dem aliens like extremely online hodors. Eventually, more civilians started to trickle in. Some were there to party. Some were there. Some were there because they were hoping somebody would be dumb enough to actually try to storm it. Some were there because they really are deeply into alien stuff. One woman showed her a printed out security camera stills that she said showed real aliens playing blackjack in a casino. And I'm fairly sure they were really just bald men, she says, who I sincerely hope that they are not aware that their image is actually being used as proof of alien life. Yeah, hope so. Another woman handed her a flyer for an organization called Snow Stone Studio, who believed that Area 51 is hiding the second coming of Jesus as part of an Illuminati plot to destroy China or something. So it's hard to tell how many people were there in total because everyone was spread out between Alien Stock, another festival called Area 51 Base Camp 20 miles down the road, and the various Area 51 entrances around the area. Most reporting on the weekend seems to have attendance at between 1,500 and 2,000, low enough that Area 51 Base Camp was canceled after the first of its 2 scheduled days. On the actual night of the raid, nobody seemed sure what was going on. The main confusion was around where everyone was supposed to be exactly. The complex that houses Area 51 is approximately the size of Connecticut, and the Facebook invite didn't specify which entrance everyone should meet at. At 3 a.m., the event's scheduled start time, around 75 people gathered at the gate nearest to Rachel. The raid never materialized. It was mostly people taking pictures of themselves, Naruto running. That's the word I was trying to think of earlier. And then being interviewed by some of the many journalists and YouTubers that were there to capture the proceedings. So, not really much happened, according to the cops. Several people actually did step over the boundary of the base and were either arrested or given a stern talking to. A Canadian guy was also arrested for indecent exposure after peeing on the base's fence. Lovely. No one was vaporized, as she said, as the beginning of the article said, unless the CIA was really, really good at covering it up. There was also some confusion as to when 3 a.m. on September 20th was actually supposed to occur. The date and time, which were listed on the Facebook invite, actually referred to a similar number of people turned up at the same gate on the following night. They also did not storm the base. Oh, goodness. I'm just fascinated by this whole process. So it sounds like people at least got to gather and be weird and silly and take selfies and do crazy stuff and celebrate, but that not any raiding happened, which is good because that was just a really bad idea. I'm trying to figure out if the person who actually set up the Facebook page and invite was even there, or if even he skipped the whole process. There's lots of pictures, pictures of aliens, pictures of alien paraphernalia. No, like souvenir kind of things. It doesn't look like really anything happened except for some crazy partying, which is not surprising. So there you go. Area 51. did not get raided. Nobody got vaporized. A couple people got arrested, but one of them was peeing on a fence. So that is understandable, at least in the terms of being arrested. We're going to take our second break of the podcast, and when we come back, we're moving on from protests and storming of Area 51 to talk about some vacations and some interesting ways of taking vacations. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast. As I said before the break, we have talked about protests and backlash. We've talked about the non-starting storming of Area 51, and now we need something silly but lighter silly. And I saw this recently on, I think, Twitter. I follow author Sandra Boynton. Definitely follow her on the book review Twitter. She does children's books, lots of board books. She draws lots of animals, etc. If you're not familiar with her, she is a lot of fun, and I enjoy reading her to the small people in my life. But she posted about this story, and it made me look into it a little more. So it turns out that toys are taking vacations and seeing the world without their owners. This is a social media trend that has spawned several travel agencies and even passports just for stuffies, just for your stuffed animals. So, Sono Azumo was 4 years old when she got her first stuffed toy, and this story comes to us from getpocket.com. An American woman who worked for the U.S. Air Force Base in Japan used to live next door to us, she says, and she gave me a big Snoopy as a Christmas present. The stuffed beagle became an inseparable companion throughout her childhood in Japan, something like a friend or a little brother. It's not an unfamiliar feeling, of course, to anyone who grew up with a favorite stuffy, which I did. His name was Teddy, not the most original name for teddy bear, but I was 8 months old when I got him, so who knows if I named him or somebody else named him, if I named him later in life. But my auntie made him for me, and I still have him today. He is in the guest room in my house. Azuma grew up, but as she got older, she discovered a passion for soft toys. This time it was a handmade eel, which she named Unagi, which is eel in Japanese, that she took on her with her on trips. She said she just thought it was fun. I blogged the photos and made my friends smile and made me smile, she says. I thought it was a fun and creative way to share my daily life. Azuma isn't alone. Lots of adults make toys a centerpiece of their travel dispatches. I actually have to admit that I have another bear. His name is Pedro Felipe, and my husband and I have this whole ongoing thing about taking pictures of Pedro in various places. And I'll tell you that story some other day. But in 2014, Shanna Robinson, a graduate student at Western Sydney University's Institute for Culture and Society, saw a trend worthy of study as part of her doctoral research. When I started chatting to people about the practice of taking a toy traveling, she says, I was shocked at how widespread it was. Almost every person I spoke to knew someone who had taken a toy traveling. Robinson, whose interest in the topic was inspired by a chapter on traveling mascots in the Lonely Planet Guide to Experimental Travel, a compendium of unusual travel ideas, then spent months studying the Flickr community Traveling Toys. This was founded in 2005, and the group now has 2,498 members and 47,600 photos. That's pretty impressive. For her study, Robinson analyzed a sample of images and asked members to fill in a short survey about their travel behavior. She then identified some common trends, such as the desire to accumulate travel culture capital by sharing pics of toys posed in world tourism hotspots. Think Dexter the toy chipmunk at Monument Valley, a panda bear strolling through Red Square in Moscow, a teddy checking out Starry Most in Bosnia. It highlights the connection between the phenomenon of the traveling toy and broader cultural logics of tourism, Robinson says. Something about pictures of toys by famous world landmarks makes a certain breed of traveler feel particularly worldly, the familiar and the foreign together as if it's the most natural thing in the world. After a while, Azuma's friends started asking her if they could take Unagi with them abroad, and they began sending photos of the eel beside famous landmarks as well. Seeing Unagi in Paris or in New York while I was in Tokyo was inspiring and fun, she says. It was a great way to see different parts of the world. I keep thinking of the movie Amelie, where the gnome goes traveling, but the dad doesn't know how it's happening. Don't want to give too much away on that, but it's very cute. Soon, she realized that the concept might appeal to a wider audience. So in 2010, Azuma quit her job in Tokyo's financial industry to start a travel agency. Not just any travel agency, but one that caters exclusively to stuffed animals. At the beginning, people thought it was a crazy idea. Who would pay for this? But I knew that this would make people who can't travel, like disabled kids, old people, or low-income families, smile. She decided to name it after its inspiration. To date, Unagi Travel Agency has organized trips for more than 100 stuffed animals, many of which have become repeat customers. Prices for trips vary depending on the destination, but standard tours of Tokyo and its surroundings go for around $50. Clients ship their toys to Azuma, and they stay with her for 2 or 3 weeks, during which time their adventures are promptly reported back to their owners via social media posts. At the end of the tour, Azuma ships them home. Tours include visits to the capital's most iconic landmarks, as well as a variety of other activities. I take them to yoga classes, soccer games, marathons, or visiting car factories like Mazda, as I think they, the clients, enjoy these activities more than just sightseeing or eating out at restaurants. This is in line with another trend identified by Robinson: anthropomorphism of toys in poses that imitate human behavior. From poses to accompanying captions, there was a clear trend of toys appearing to experience travel like real people. The toys were photographed worried about missing public transportation, deciding on their next meal, and of course, posing in front of famous tourist sites, she explains. Oh my gosh, there's a picture of the animals doing the animals doing yoga. Snoopy is doing yoga on his own tiny little yoga mat. For example, one caption below a teddy bear riding the Eurostar train from London to Paris read, "I made it onto the train. There was a bit of drama when I got separated from my traveling buddy in the London Underground, but we got together in the end. Also, they gave me breakfast on the train, and I got a nice view of the English countryside on my way to France." Before taking the cuddly companions out, Azuma asks their owners to fill out a short questionnaire. She relies on these to inform the trips, but also goes with her gut. "Last week I had a rabbit, Dennis, joining from Washington in the U.S. I wasn't sure if he liked Japanese food, but I felt he was enjoying it, so I expressed that in the photos and videos I shared," she says. Maybe half is based on the profile, but half is imagination that comes from communicating with the stuffed animals. This is the sweetest story ever. To Azuma, this kind of relationship with toys is actually something that can help people struggling with anxiety or depression. She shared the story of a boy who had stopped going to school after being bullied. His mother was worried to see her son just staying at home with no connections with the outside world. She sent his stuffed animal on a trip, and he enjoyed seeing the outside world and seeing his stuffed animal getting along well with other stuffed animals. Eventually, he became interested in going outside. After the trip, the boy went to visit Azuma with his mother and eventually returned to school. Now he's a high school student. He's still shy and has some challenges, but he's attending classes. Oh, so cute. Here's a picture of several stuffed toys in the snow in the French Alps. Of course, taking photos of stuffed animals over dinner or on the subway comes with its own challenges, such as looking weird to the uninitiated. When I took my first customer, Lars, a gorilla from Hawaii, on a tour of Paris, I was worried of what people would think about taking photos of such a peluche, French for stuffed toy, says Sabine Passalagou. Passalagou, inspired by the trip her daughter's stuffed bee took with Azuma, opened a similar service called Peluche Travel Agency in France with Azuma's blessing. The French woman has since taken around 50 guests on more than 40 tours around France. Her most regular customers are older people who cannot travel anymore and are happy to explore the world vicariously. For me, she says, the best part of this job is to share what I see. It's a pleasure to allow people to discover my country and its lifestyle. She admits that she still worries about people looking at her like she is quite crazy with her peluches, but most of the time people share her joy, even police on the Champs-Élysées. So cute. More pictures. Oh, this bear has his own passport. That is very sweet. It's from a German company, Oma Animali, which makes passports for stuffed animals, including one for this teddy bear. Robinson doesn't know for sure when the toy travel trend began. Here we go. The gnome in the movie, the 2001 movie, and it's a French film, I didn't mention that, Amélie, may have helped to popularize it. But in the last decade, social media platforms have led to the birth of something like a toy travel ecosystem. In addition to the agencies in Japan and France, there is now Toy Voyagers, a website that connects traveling toys with hosts, and Omanamali? Sorry, a toy passport issuing organization based in Germany. Back in the 1990s, I was traveling in Asia with my stuffed animal, Illegal, a hedgehog glove puppet, and a friend gave me a sort of passport he had, which I turned into Illegal's passport. With her photo and data, says Stephanie Tushin, who founded Omanimal in 2013. It was quite fun, and even though I was already grown up by that time. And there's a picture of that original passport. Very sweet. So, to date, Omanamali has issued 852 passports. The first one was tested with the German Federal Border Guard at the Munich airport. They had so much fun with the passport that they ordered one for the teddy bear they keep in their office, Tushin says. In fact, several of her clients tell stories of dour immigration officers and how the toy passports tend to break down their serious veneer. More often than not, they actually stamp the passports. Tushin says that the idea is really about emotional connection and finding a different way to look at the world. And this echoes what Robinson ultimately found most important in her study of the trend. When people see the world through the eyes of their toys, it can seem fresh, new, exciting, and most of all, unique. After all, isn't that what we often seek and crave when we set out to travel? So very sweet. I didn't realize I was part of a trend when I took pictures of my bear, Pedro Felipe, at different places. He has been to Florida. He's been to Montana. He's been to Snake River in Idaho. He actually helped me propose to my husband through a series of pictures that I made into a book. Where else has he been? Mexico. He went with us on our honeymoon to Mexico. He should have had a passport. He's been to Ohio and Alabama. I think that might be it. Possibly more places, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. So he definitely needs to travel more, and I need to take pictures. I need to take more pictures of him. At any rate, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Social Media News Podcast. Please join me again on Thursday when we'll see what else is trending this week. Thanks.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Social Media Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.